I'm just going to give it a couple more minutes and see if anybody else trickles in. All right. I want to welcome everybody to the last unit of the day. I know it's been quite a long one. We're going to have a short service like we would normally have at our weekly Zazen Kai. Sekishi will be giving a short Dharma talk. Nenge will be giving the Metta verses. Shujin will be doing the verse of Atonement and the four vows. And Washin will be our Eno this evening. I think that covered everybody. If it didn't, I apologize. Let me also take this opportunity real quick to thank our tech Enos with all the videos and work you've done behind the scenes. Rohatsu wouldn't have been able to be done without you all. So, thank you very much. And with that, I will go ahead and mute myself. Washin, take it away whenever you're ready.
The heart of the perfection of great wisdom, Sutra. Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, awakened one of compassion in Prajnaparamita, body practice of perfect wisdom, perceived the emptiness of all five conditions, and was free of suffering. O Shariputra, form is no other than emptiness, emptiness, no other than form is precisely emptiness, emptiness, precisely form, sensations, perceptions, formations, and consciousness are also like this. O Shariputra, all things are expressions, all emptiness, not born, not destroyed, not stained, not pure, neither waxing nor waning. Cause emptiness is not form, not sensation, nor perception, not formation, nor consciousness, no ear, no strong body, mind, no sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, nor object of mind, no realm of sight, no realm of consciousness, no ignorance, no end to ignorance, no old age and death, no cessation of old age and death, no suffering, nor cause or end to suffering, no path, no wisdom, and no gain thus bodhisattvas leave this prajnaparamita with no hindrance, no mind, no hindrance, therefore no fear, far beyond all delusion. Nirvana is already here, all past, present, and the future Buddhas leave this prajnaparamita and realize supreme and complete enlightenment. Therefore know that prajnaparamita is the sacred mantra, the luminous mantra, the supreme mantra, the incomparable mantra, by which all suffering is clear. This is no other than truth. Therefore set for this prajnaparamita mantra, set for this mantra, and proclaim Gati Gati Paragati Parasangati Bodhisattva. Anya Shinyo. Buddha nature pervades the whole universe. Reality existing right here now. In reciting the heart of the perfection of great wisdom sutra, we dedicate our sincere efforts to Shakyamuni Buddha, honored one, the historical Buddha and teacher, and to those ancestral teachers, Heihei Dogen, honored one, Soji Keizan, honored one, all successive honored ones up until Zuigaku Rempo, honored one, and Buddha Wafu, honored one, and to all other honored ones throughout history, same here, diverse honored ones, whose names have been forgotten or left unsaid. We also dedicate these efforts to the three treasures, Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, to all awakened ones and teachers in all places and times. We especially seek tranquility and well-being for all creatures now suffering or ill in health. May they be serene through all the ills. May their lives be at peace and wisdom pervade the darkness of ignorance. We dedicate our hopes and aspirations to all victims of war and violence and natural events, to the injured and to all families touched by these tragedies, to the healing of hatred in all countries and among all peoples, to the wisdom and compassion of our world leaders, the peace of the world and harmony of all beings. Thus, let the harmful effects of words, thoughts, and actions be dispelled, and compassion bloom in perpetual spring. May we all realize and live the enlightened way together. All Buddhas throughout space and time, all bodhisattvas, mahasattvas, prajna, paramita.
Zazen? Please get up slowly if you need to and take your time. We're not going anywhere. Zazen, and Sekishi will give a little talk. Sekishi, I'm gonna ring the bells and scurry back over and mute myself, and then after that, you got the con.
Can everybody hear me okay? It's a little weird facing the wall. I never know if you can hear or not. Well, so, I'll be continuing the the sort of meditation on the verse of atonement that Kote and Washin started us with. So I think ultimately Geika and I are going to kind of share a line. So on account of beginningless greed, anger, and then it's Geika's turn. So we start with this word beginningless. And I feel like there's... Okay, Daddy, you need to go lay down. Go lay down. Yeah. Greed is when your ball rolls underneath of the dresser. You really want it back. There's an older sutta where I think the Shakyamuni Buddha says something along the lines of the cycle of rebirth has no known beginning. There is no first point. And I think that's a good place to start with beginninglessness. Because there's an aspect of this where causes and conditions are uncountable and ultimately unknowable. There was another Buddha who once said, if you want to make an apple pie from scratch, you have to first invent the universe. That's Carl Sagan. And that captures, I think, this first aspect of beginninglessness. These myriad of causes and conditions that lead to where we are right now in this moment. Kote mentioned, the Raiku Fusatsu that we do for the full moon ceremony, where we atone and renew our commitment to live by the vows, which includes this greed, anger, and ignorance in the which I'm not supposed to talk about because it's somebody else. And at the Fusatsu this week, I talked briefly about this moment, which, I can use very poetic language to talk about it. It was really beautiful, but it was also nothing special. It's a regular moment that happens. I had a long day, and I took the dog out for one last walk, and I knew it was the full moon because the following day was the Fusatsu, but it was a really full moon. I guess, the leaves are off the trees here in Virginia, and it was a very clear night, and just the things combined in such a way that it was just shockingly bright. And the dog and I sat under this old, gnarly old maple tree on our property. And what I mentioned, the Fusatsu, is that when you're just sitting there in that moment, even a brief, a brief Zazen, greed, anger, and ignorance really don't have a chance to arise, and we don't have a chance to violate the precepts when we sit motionless and we just let the whole world do as it does. And I think part of this aspect of beginninglessness, though, like sitting there in that moment and then getting up and walking off with the dog, and we spent some more time outside because it really was pretty and you could see and all that. I was kind of struck by just how unlikely it is to be here in this moment, wherever we find ourselves. That we had a family member who got sick, and my wife's business had been growing, and we really needed additional room for her business, and we needed a space for my mother-in-law to live with us. And we started looking at land, and we decided to build a house that would have a little attached granny space and office and all that kind of thing. And so those were part of the causes and conditions that led to sitting under that tree. There's a big natural gas pipeline that's being built from West Virginia out to the coast of Virginia here. And, it has all the political strife around that you can imagine. And, obviously there's people who don't want us building more pipelines to move fossil fuels around. There's an environmental cost to that. I also can't escape the fact that that pipeline led to me sitting under that tree, because the land that we purchased was part of what was originally going to be the path of that pipeline. So it was pretty undesirable and therefore affordable. And we picked this area because my wife and I, our families and our body minds gave us access to a college education 20 years ago, 30 years ago. And we were attracted to the university here. That university was established like 150 years ago. It was a Methodist seminary before that. And, just, you could just trace all these things. And of course, there's this fellow named Jundo Cohen who received transmission from Guru Wafu Nishijima. And he decided to create a Sangha that would meet and practice together online. This Buddha Dharma Sangha in a digital space. Without encountering that, I don't know that I even would have it would have been cool to be under that tree. But I wouldn't have sat Zazen because I hadn't really encountered it. So Shundo was there. And long before I was born, the hill was a pasture for cattle. And the farmer must have cut the smaller trees around this maple so that it could thrive, because the stumps are still there. They're almost completely turned into, I don't know, they're almost like this consistency of styrofoam. They're really old and they're really crumbled, but you can find them, and they were clearly cut by human hands. And long before that, someone coppiced that tree. They cut it down and left, a couple feet sticking up, and it grew shoots. So at the very base of the tree, it's humongous. But then it splits out into all these little separate pieces that are all funky and stick out in all directions. And each of them is a pretty good sized tree in and of itself. And I don't know, 800 years ago, Eihei Dogen brought Shikantaza to Japan, and 1500 years ago, Bodhidharma sat in a cave, and 2500 years ago, Shakyamuni Buddha saw the morning star and touched the earth, and beings awoke. That's part of beginninglessness. I don't know how many tens of thousands of years and plants and animals and insects and mycelium have worked together to build up earth, soil, living soil on top of the layer of stone. And when it rains, the water collects on that impermeable layer of stone and it makes a spring, and that spring feeds the tree. And it brings deer and mustelids and foxes and rodents and birds and everybody. They all come visit the tree. And you can just keep doing this, right? You can just keep going. Billions of years ago, a planetary embryo, I can't remember the name of it, Theia maybe, collided with the Earth and kicked the moon out. There's a moon in the sky because of this horrible cataclysm of two unfathomably large things bumping into each other and making something new. And the carbon in that tree and the calcium in my bones and the bones of the dog and your bones came from the hearts of ancient stars. And, Carl Sagan Bodhisattva had some things to say about this, right? We've been passing oxygen back and forth for a couple billion years. It's all here. And even the iron in our blood, like, it came from neutron stars, and like it's beginningless and it's unfathomable. But it's also not distant. It's not something separate. All of these things are here right now. And it's really beautiful, and I find that very inspiring when it's time to get up in the morning and I don't want to get up. But it's also not the whole thing. I think it's not the full meaning of beginninglessness. And I think that's where, Kote and Washin both talked about our Mahayana understanding. And I think the Mahayana understanding is the second aspect of beginninglessness. And that is that this big long list of things that I just talked about, all those things are dharmas, right? We use the term dharmas. And they're empty. They're empty of any sort of enduring, independent, inherent self. When we make a list and we cut the universe up into little pieces like tree and dog and person and moon, it creates an illusion of separate things. And when we list them in time, the way I just did, it creates, or in sequence, it creates the illusion of time, that things travel through time. But I think the reality of the no-thingness, the non-selfness, that lack of enduring, independent nature, means that there's literally no beginning and no end. What begins and what ends when nothing has an inherent self. And so I think that's the flip side. And that one's a little, that's a little more woo and Mahayana and delicious. but it's beautiful too. And I think, Zhendo talks about the at-one-ment for our atonement. And I think that at-one-ment, that understanding that Kote and Washin have mentioned, it leaps through the body-mind of a man and a dog and a funky old tree and a full moon. And when not self sits shikantaza, there is room for a dog and a funky old tree and some neutron stars circling each other, and Kote and Washin in each of you. All sitting. And when all is sitting in that way, dharmas just disappear of their own accord. And there's no possibility of greed, and there's no trace of anger. I think I don't think that we haven't really talked yet about the nature of this greed, anger, and ignorance line. But traditionally in Buddhism, these are the three poisons. The Buddha introduces them in one of his first discourses called the Fire Sermon. And it's called the Fire Sermon because it starts with this sort of, this very evocative line that the all is burning. What's it burning with? It's burning with greed, and it's burning with anger, and it's burning with the fire of ignorance. I'm not sure quite how we went from fire to poison, but we did. I'm sure there's a there's a textual line there, but I don't know what it is. And these three poisons are greed, anger, and ignorance. Sometimes hatred instead of anger, sometimes delusion instead of ignorance. And they really are central to Buddhist practice. I used to practice with a brick and mortar Sangha that had a really beautiful, terrifying, and beautiful Bhava Chakra tapestry, that wheel of life in the practice space. And, it's a very symbolic image that depicts the wheel of life, the entire realm of samsara, the 6 realms of devas, are kind of just indolent, chilling out, no pain, no sorrow, no suffering. If they want to have a child, they just think about it and one appears out of their side, and they get this like amazing medicine from the life-giving, the sap of a life-giving tree. And the life-giving tree goes down into the Ashura realm, which is like these jealous, I can't blame them for being jealous. The tree grows from their realm and it goes up and gives the devas like all these cool powers, and they don't get any of it. And that leads to fighting and war. And there's a human realm, and we all know how that one works. In the human realm, we really don't get what we want, and we get a lot of what we don't want. It's also the realm where we can wake up. There's the animal realm, sort of the fear and eat or be eaten realm, that's based really in the classical understanding. It's entirely sort of driven by reaction, instinct, right? Animal understanding is I guess about instinct. And then there's the hungry ghost realm, and the pretas, the hungry ghosts that have these really skinny, narrow necks and huge bellies, and they can never satisfy their thirst and hunger. And then there's the hell realms, where there's a bunch of cold hells and hot hells where beings stay until all their negative karma is exhausted. And so beings move through these realms, right, around the wheel, and they They follow the 12 links of dependent origination that go around the outside in a beginningless process. But at the center, and this is a long way to get there, but at the center of the Bhava Chakra, the hub of the whole thing, of all of samsara, there's usually 3 animals depicted. And I know in the one that was at my old practice place, each of them was biting the other's tail. And there's a rooster, and the rooster is greed. He's attached to his hens in the flock, and he'll fight anyone who comes near. And I like that. I mean, I don't like the poor roosters being depicted so poorly, I suppose, but I like that version of greed, because I think for me, when I sort of first encountered that, greed to me was like avarice, right? I want all the golds and a nice car and a huge house, and but it's more, I think it's more subtle than that in a Buddhist understanding. Greed really applies whenever we attach to something. And that something might not be a thing. It's often an outcome, right? We want a thing, we want our lives to go a particular way. There might not be a thing involved, but we want them to go a particular way. And I think there's a subtle feeling that comes with that says, we know. Oh, I know what outcomes will follow from this event. I know what's best. I know what should be. I know what should be done. But no, causes and conditions are vast and numberless and beginningless. So we really don't know what's going to follow from any given event. Sometimes we have a pretty good idea. We're a bunch of smart folks. We probably get it right sometimes. But the thing is, if we just act with generosity and a positive intention, we don't really have to attach to specific outcomes. You cannot be right or wrong if you just offer someone a smile and a hand with compassion in your heart. You cannot be wrong, whatever it is that you do. And I think that ultimately the Mahayana nature of grasping is that with a lack of that enduring, inherent, independent self, what's to grasp? There's nothing you can hold on to. And so ultimately, there's nothing to be greedy about. I think the next creature is a snake. And apologies to Doshin, our new our new unsway. He's posted some amazing photos of rattlesnakes and these amazing vipers and stuff on his social media over the years, and I love them. So I'm just the messenger here. I'm reporting in with some of the traditional, classical depictions of anger. It's a snake. And I think the thing is, I think the reason that it's a snake is not because snakes are evil or bad or anything like that. But if you're a human being and you see a snake, particularly a venomous snake, you know that they might lunge and strike. And it might be a touch, it might be movement. The pit vipers can sense heat, and so I think there's this idea that a snake they just strike. And anger works like that sometimes, right? Like we don't sit around in our comfy chairs pondering how to be angry or how to be better at it. It just happens. And I think much like greed, anger comes when we attach to things, to objects or outcomes. I know that for myself, pretty rarely get angry at other people. But man, I can spend all day being angry at this guy right here. I can absolutely hate this guy right here. And I'm pretty sure a bunch of us are familiar with this feeling. I set these high expectations and every mistake becomes a colossal failure of a garbage person. But just like with greed, that comes from this knowing of this should. Should is a dangerous word. When I become emperor, I'm gonna get rid of the word should. Turns us into jealous little gods. Because I know what this guy should do and he didn't do it. And not doing it represents failure. So therefore I'm justified in judging and being angry at this guy. But no. Causes and conditions are vast and numberless and beginningless. So again, acting with just simple generosity and a positive intention and not attaching to some specific outcome. Because ultimately in our way, we understand that without that enduring inherent self-nature, who am I going to be angry at? There's nobody to be angry at. And I guess I don't, just to finish up the Baba Chakra hub, the last animal's pig, who's supposed to be ignorance. I think in ancient India they were seen as, foolish animals who would sleep wherever they were, would eat whatever was in front of them. And so again, at the hub, you have these three poisons. These are at the hub of the entire wheel of becoming. The pig bites the tail of the snake, and the snake bites the rooster, and the rooster bites the pig. Because greed, anger, and ignorance, you can experience it in your life. They do tend to chase each other. They co-arise. Greed implies that things should be different. Anger implies that there's some thing or buddy that should be different. Those are ignorance. Those are delusion. So I guess to sort of bring it home, running out of time, beginninglessness means we just can't see the origin of our existing karma. We don't know how we got here. There's a song I could sing, but I can't sing. How did I get here? And all of the entire universe in the 10 directions, all of time and space and every cause and every condition, which are not actually separate, they led to this body mind right here and right now. They are beginningless. And I think that the way to live with that, because it's true. Also, we're, human beings, and we think things and we do things, and that's why we have atonement ceremonies and good stuff like that. But I think that, I guess since, I can't remember, I think it was Kote mentioned the watering seeds practice, which comes back, there's a whole other discussion there about the seeds of consciousness. They're sort of the storehouse of our karma. But working with what arises is often just a matter of watering the seeds of the counterexample. When greed arises, we can just simply water the seeds of generosity and compassion. When anger arises, we can simply water the seeds of metta, of loving kindness, with compassion. Always comes back to compassion, doesn't it? So this is pretty concrete and practical, right? Like, I just said a whole bunch of stuff about beginningless time and neutron stars and oak trees, but really we do our best to keep these precepts. Generosity, loving kindness, and we approach them with this Mahayana attitude of there's nobody to hate without the delusion of an enduring inherent self. And there's really nothing to grasp without the illusion of an independent, enduring self. So we should do our best to keep these precepts. Let's sit. Kinhin. I'll just echo Koshi's reminder. We're not used to this, at least most of us, so be careful, be slow, make sure your feet are awake, no trips to the ER. Zazen? I think the next section will also include Metta practice from Nenge.
Second sheet, it saved me trouble of getting up and ringing the bell and whatnot. With my mute situation, you want to just finish up Eno and take us home at the end?
Sure.
Just ring the bells and then Shuji do his thing?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
We running Metta now?
Yeah, let me do the bells and then we'll start the Metta chapter unit.
Today we're going to talk a little bit about metta meditation. And to start with, I want to read a short part of the Karaniya Metta Sutta, which is translated from Pali. This is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, unburdened with duties and frugal in their ways, peaceful and calm and wise and skillful, not proud or demanding in nature. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove. And here's the good part. Wishing in gladness and in safety may all beings be at ease. So what is this thing called metta? We're talking about something that translates maybe to loving kindness or goodwill. Compassion comes to mind, or benevolence, or just good vibes. There's a 5th century document from the 5th century of the Common Era in which Buddhaghosa wrote the Visuddhimagga. And for Theravadan Buddhism, this is perhaps the most important text, with the exception of the Pali Canon itself. And the Visuddhimagga describes many practices, and one of these is how to practice metta, which is described as the repeated offering of well-being for the benefit of others. So why do we, as Soto Zen Buddhists, why are we concerned about a Theravadan document? Why are we thinking about this in our practice? And of course, our core practice, our reasonless reason for being, is always Zazen. In our Soto Zen tradition, shikantaza, just sitting. So why metta meditation? This is more of a meditative practice and not at all Zazen. And in fact, it is Theravadan in its origins. But this is not something we do instead of Zazen. This is something that in our Zendo we've come to practice sort of as a tradition in addition to Zazen. It's a little bit of an addition to our practice, a bit of compassion for the sentient beings of the universe that has become a tradition for us, introduced by Jendo 15 years ago this year during Ango as a practice during that time. And I found it to not only be good during Ango, but during the rest of the year as well. It's a daily practice for me. I use it as a part of my morning liturgy, and I sometimes come back to it throughout the day, especially when people start to get on my nerves a little bit. I think it's important for Zen Buddhists to consider practices that raise the bodhisattva mind, that help us to foster goodwill and consideration for others. And it can help us to see all sentient beings, even the ones that we particularly dislike, as having value and meaning. It can help to set the stage for the day, establishing an intention to do in the world good as we go about our day. And maybe it'll help settle your mind a little bit in preparation for Zazen. So whether you do it in the morning or you do it before you go to bed, it's a nice little brief practice that is easy to make a good habit for ourselves. In this practice, we repeatedly offer metta for sentient beings. First, we offer it for ourselves, and then we think of a person for whom we feel particular fondness, somebody that we are close to, maybe a spouse or a parent or another immediate relative. And next we think about a close friend, someone that we love and always enjoy the company of. But after that, things get a little bit harder. We think about someone who maybe doesn't carry so much meaning in our lives. Maybe we don't even know them. We crossed their path, saw them in our workplace, and maybe we don't even know their name. And then the toughest part is to consider someone who is particularly difficult to get along with, maybe someone with whom we fight, or who has harmed us, or a political figure that we disagree with. So these are the people to think of as we practice metta, going to guide us through a little bit of metta meditation as we practice it at Treeleaf Zendo. And there are 4 brief lines or verses, and I'll say them slowly and allow time for you to consider who you're thinking about in giving metta, and to repeat these lines after me. And so first we offer metta for ourselves, and we say, may I be free of suffering. May I feel safe and still. May I be free of enmity. May I be loving, grateful, and kind. May I be healthy and at ease in all my ills. May I be at peace, embracing all conditions of life. And now we think of someone to whom we are especially close, maybe a parent, maybe your spouse or partner, or some immediate relative that you're close to. And we lift them up in our hearts and offer them compassion and say, may they be free of suffering. May they feel safe and still. May they be free of enmity. May they be loving, grateful, and kind. May they be healthy and at ease in all their ills. May they be at peace, embracing all conditions of life. And now we consider perhaps a close friend, someone who we love and enjoy the company of, and bringing them to mind and sending goodwill their direction. We say to ourselves, may they be free of suffering. May they feel safe and still. May they be free of enmity. May they be loving, grateful, and kind. May they be healthy and at ease in all their ills. May they be at peace, embracing all conditions of life. Next, let's think of someone that maybe doesn't carry so much meaning in our lives, someone that we crossed paths with, or someone we may not even know their name. Just a random person that we came across. And considering them with compassion, we say, may they be free of suffering. May they feel safe and still. May they be free of enmity. May they be loving, grateful, and kind. May they be healthy and at ease in all their ills. May they be at peace, embracing all conditions of life. And the hardest one, let us think about someone who is particularly difficult to get along with. Maybe it's a political leader that you disagree with, or someone who has harmed you. Someone that sometimes you feel maybe the world would be better off without. And genuinely offer them compassion. And say, may they be free of suffering. May they feel safe and still. May they be free of enmity. May they be loving, grateful, and kind. May they be healthy and at ease in all their ills. May they be at peace, embracing all conditions of life. And finally, think of all these people at once. The people you love, the people you may not know, the people who are difficult to get along with, and all sentient beings. And maybe even hear the voices of all sentient beings as they cry out for compassion and say, may we be free of suffering. May we feel safe and still. May we be free of enmity. May we be loving, grateful, and kind. May we be healthy and at ease in all our ills. May we be at peace, embracing all conditions of life. And as we sit and reflect on all of the sentient beings in the world and we offer them compassion and metta, may your heart also be filled with compassion for yourself. And may that extend throughout your day.
Next, we'll have the verse of atonement and the 4 vows.
Harmful words, thoughts, and acts ever committed by me since of old, on account of beginningless greed, anger, and ignorance, born of my body, mouth, and mind. Now I atone for them all. To save all sentient beings, though beings numberless, to transform all delusions, though delusions inexhaustible, to perceive reality, though reality is boundless, to attain the enlightened way, a way not attainable, to save all sentient beings, though beings numberless, to transform all delusions, though delusions inexhaustible, to perceive reality, though reality is boundless, to attain the enlightened way, a way not attainable, to save all sentient beings, though beings numberless, to transform all delusions, though delusions inexhaustible, to perceive reality, though reality is boundless, to attain the enlightened way, a way not attainable.
Well, we made it through. It was so good to practice with you all today. I hope you can, go do something to take care of the body mind a little bit. Do some stretches, do yoga, whatever. Take a hot bath. That's my plan. But yeah, whatever you have to do to care for the body. Tomorrow we will start again fresh. And I guess just a reminder for everyone that in the morning, you'll don't have on your Rohatsu or your Kesa, and on the second day we actually just get into place and start sitting. So I'll see you all then. Again, thank you, everybody.